Personal hygiene is a critical component of the food safety system and vital to ensuring consumer safety. In food manufacturing, personal hygiene is the set of practices employees use to maintain cleanliness and prevent the transfer of pathogens that cause foodborne illness. These practices include regular and thorough hand washing, wearing clean clothing and hair restraints, and not handling food when sick or with open wounds. It also involves prohibiting behaviors like smoking, eating, or touching your face while working with food, and removing jewelry. Proper personal hygiene practices help to prevent the transmission of harmful pathogens such as E. coli, listeria, viruses, and bloodborne pathogens and other potentially infectious materials. In fact, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention says that personal hygiene is the best way to prevent the spread of communicable diseases. Personal hygiene in food manufacturing is governed by Federal Regulation 21 CFR Part 117. It is primarily enforced by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's, or FDA's current good manufacturing practices, which require adequate personal cleanliness, proper hand washing, and the use of clean outer garments. The FDA Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, also mandates personal hygiene standards as part of its hazard analysis and risk-based preventive controls for human food, including specific rules for produce safety. Some specific enforcement and compliance standards include: food manufacturers are responsible for ensuring their employees are trained and comply with these personal hygiene regulations. Inspectors from the FDA or other federal agencies will verify that facilities have the necessary controls in place to ensure food safety and that employees are following the correct procedures. A food safety plan that includes hazard analysis and risk-based preventive controls is mandatory for most food facilities. Good personal hygiene can prevent food poisoning. Bacteria that cause food poisoning can be on everyone, even healthy people. People can spread bacteria from themselves to the food if they touch their nose, mouth, hair, or clothes, and then food. It's therefore imperative that anyone working with food is trained to at least a basic level in food safety and hygiene. The training must be documented and include hand and personal care, protective clothing and equipment, and health and behavior requirements. Some ways of preventing foodborne illness and contamination can be achieved through personal hygiene practices, including eliminating pathogens. Personal hygiene is the first line of defense against foodborne illnesses. The human body can carry harmful bacteria and viruses that can be transferred to food and cause sickness. Prevents cross-contamination. Without proper hygiene, pathogens can spread from a food handler's hands, hair, or clothing to food and equipment. This can be prevented by washing hands frequently, wearing clean uniforms, and using gloves correctly. And protects against serious outbreaks. Instances of foodborne illness, some with fatal outcomes, have been linked to poor hygiene practices in food manufacturing. Workplace personal hygiene can be broken down into considerations before departing for work, before entering the production facility, and while performing work. Personal hygiene starts at home before heading to work. The important considerations include bathing. Shower daily before work. Washing removes bacteria, viruses, and fungi that can cause infections. Regular hygiene is key to maintaining the skin's protective barrier and preventing issues like cellulitis or skin abscesses. Fingernails. Keep them short, clean, and free of nail polish. Long fingernails can harbor foreign materials, bacteria, and viruses that can contaminate raw ingredients and finished goods. And nail polish can chip while performing work and adulterate products. Cuts and wounds. Cover all cuts and grazes with a waterproof or impermeable bandage. A brightly colored bandage is recommended. If the wound is on the hand, it is recommended to wear a glove over the bandage. Many companies require the use of special metal detectable bandages to be able to detect them if they come off and fall into manufactured products. Illnesses. Do not work with food if there are symptoms of a communicable illness like vomiting, diarrhea, or jaundice. Employees should stay home until at least 48 hours after the symptoms have cleared, or as advised by a supervisor. Clean and intact clothes. Wear clean clothes that are free from fraying to prevent contaminating products or introducing foreign materials. And unsoiled footwear. Clean shoes and boots before going to work. Footwear soiled with mud or other materials can introduce harmful bacteria or viruses into the manufacturing facility. It is advisable to have specific footwear only stored and worn at work to prevent unintentional introduction of exterior contamination. Before entering the production floor, donning the appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, and taking appropriate shielding measures are necessary to avoid product contamination. This includes uniforms. Wear clean, appropriate protective clothing, such as uniforms, smocks, coveralls, and aprons. Hair coverings. Tie back long hair and wear a hairnet and beard nets that covers all hair and facial hair. Jewelry. Remove all jewelry. Plain banded rings and small sleeper earrings may be permitted depending on company policy, but anything that can fall into food, like necklaces and bracelets, should be removed. Shirt pockets. Empty all pockets above the waist to prevent items from falling out of them and into the product. And footwear. Wear clean and appropriate footwear. Some facilities require shoe covers or have specific footwear disinfection processes. If foot baths or foamers are in place, ensure personnel walk through them to disinfect footwear before entering production areas. Hands are the most hazardous part of the body when it comes to contamination. Hands pick up bacteria and viruses off every surface they touch. Hand hygiene considerations include: wash often. Wash hands thoroughly with soap and warm water before starting work, after using the restroom, eating, smoking, blowing nose, handling garbage, and after any activity that could contaminate them. And don't forget the backs of hands, wrists, between fingers and under your fingernails. After handling raw food. Wash hands after handling raw ingredients. This is especially important if handling ingredients with different allergens or ones that carry bacteria or viruses to prevent cross-contamination. Before returning to work. Wash hands or apply hand sanitizer before returning to the workstation, especially if the production area is left. And use gloves correctly. If gloves are used, ensure they are clean, intact, and changed regularly. It is recommended to use metal-detectable gloves to detect them if they fall into the product. Hand wash stations should provide water, soap, and drying towels from hands-free devices. This will prevent reintroducing contaminants after hand washing is completed. The step-by-step guide to properly washing hands is: first, wet hands. Turn on clean, running water and wet hands completely. Warm water is more effective, but cold water will work too if warm water is not available. Next, apply soap. Apply enough soap to cover all surfaces of the hands. Then, scrub hands. Vigorously rub hands together for at least 20 seconds. Make sure to scrub the backs of the hands, between the fingers, and under the nails. Once completed, rinse the hands. Rinse hands well under clean, running water until all soap is removed. Finally, dry hands. Thoroughly dry hands immediately after they are washed. Always dry hands with a clean towel, disposable paper towel, or under an air dryer. The important thing is to make sure the hands are completely dry. Never use a tea towel or clothes to dry hands because they may pick up contaminants again. A tip is to hum the happy birthday song from beginning to end twice to ensure you are washing for the full 20 seconds. While performing work, the key aspects of personal hygiene can include: hand washing. When hands become soiled, in any manner, they must be washed to prevent adulteration and contamination. Changing contaminated or dirty protective clothing. If protective coats, hair or beard nets, or other clothing become soiled, especially with allergens, it is important to change them out for clean ones. And monitoring work. It is important that both workers and supervisors monitor themselves and their personal hygiene and work to ensure safe food production. Some other prohibited behaviors in food production areas to prevent contamination include: eating and drinking. These activities can introduce undeclared allergens or other hazards to food products. Smoking, vaping, and other tobacco products. These can introduce carcinogens and foreign materials into foods. Chewing gum. This can pose a foreign material hazard if it falls into the product. Personal items. Keep personal belongings, including jackets, hats, mobile phones, earphones, and the like away from food preparation and storage areas. And touching face. Avoid touching the face or mouth, and do not cough or sneeze over food to avoid picking up infectious materials on hands while performing work. Methods to promote personal hygiene in food manufacturing include implementing strict hand-washing protocols, mandating clean uniforms and hair restraints, and enforcing sickness policies. Other key practices involve designating areas. Create separate, designated areas for breaks where employees can eat, drink, and smoke without contaminating food areas. Hygiene locks. Install hygiene locks that guide employees through a series of hygiene procedures, such as hand washing and disinfection, before entering the production area. Footwear sanitation. Implement a protocol to clean and sanitize footwear when entering and leaving food work areas. Training. Provide regular training on the importance of personal hygiene and the specific company protocols to prevent contamination. Pre-work checks. Before work starts, checking workers to ensure they are clean, free of foreign material hazards, healthy, and have the appropriate protective equipment will confirm compliance with personal hygiene standards. And monitoring. Conduct regular inspections and audits to ensure that hygiene standards are being met consistently. It is a legal requirement that all food handlers are supervised, instructed, or trained in food hygiene matters appropriate to their work activities, but it must not be seen as a box-ticking exercise. It must be practiced at all times to help ensure that food is safe for public consumption. Enforcement will support building a food safety culture that will be ingrained in the entire workforce. Personal hygiene is a critical component of the food safety system and vital to ensuring consumer safety. Employee compliance and standards enforcement will support safe food manufacturing. We hope you found this training valuable. Please click the subscribe button to access additional food sure training videos.